Agreed. Most people would be happy with ease of doing business, but we in PAFI strongly believe reducing the friction of doing business in India will easily add a couple of basis points to the GDP. The Public Affairs Forum, as you all know, has the public affairs professionals from multiple sectors, from IT to pharma, automobiles to agriculture, consumer goods, capital goods. It is one common glue that holds us all together. It's the pursuit to improve ease of doing business, to get to consistent, predictable, transparent policy, and that is the reason for our existence. In the recent past, the government has shown a lot of emphasis on ease of doing business. We had the vice chairman of Niti Aayog with us yesterday. He talked about ease of improving competitiveness. Last year, we had a significant labor law reforms from 44 laws with 1,458 sections. We now have four codes with 480 sections. During the COVID, the government relaxed the telecom laws that prevented work from home. We all know how India moved from an offline economy to an online economy. And since then, the government has made relaxation permanent. While this is a great development, it begs the question, why did we have a law that prohibited work from home in the first place? So, what does it take us to move from pressure of doing business to pleasure of doing business? To debate this, we have a great panel: Pramod Bhasin, Chairman Icareer and Clicks Capital, but most importantly, the founder of Genpact, and he's the father of the ITS industry in India. Welcome, Pramod.
Thank
Manish
you.
Sabharwal, Vice Chairman of Team Lease Services, India's largest staffing solutions company. Manish, like we were talking before, we really like your company's tagline, putting India to work. Welcome. Srinivas Katikitla, Secretary to the Government of India, Director of Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, and most importantly, someone who has been deeply involved in Mission Karma Yogi, the Government of India's flagship services capacity building program. And finally, Mr. Ajay Sani, Secretary of Ministry of IT, one of the easiest ministries to do business with. Welcome, Mr. Sani. To conduct the panel, we have our friend Javed Syed, Associate Executive Editor of the Economic Times. Javed, before I hand it over to you, I have a request. The reason, like I said, for the existence of the public affairs professionals is to solve the difficulties of doing business in India. So my request to you is don't solve all the problems the next 1 hour. We love our jobs and we need it. Over to you, Javed.
Thanks, Harish. I want to begin by congratulating the organizers for breaking new ground and coming up with this really innovative topic. This is the first time in my professional life that I've heard the words business and pleasure in the same sentence in India, in the Indian context. So nevertheless, the panelists might have a different view. So let's without further ado begin. May I invite? So we'll ask. So all panelists will sort of do opening remarks, and after that we'll do a small interactive session, and then if there are some questions from the audience, we'll sort of take them on. We'll begin with Mr. Pramod Bhasin, who now heads Icareer and is the chairman of Click Capital. But for many of us, he's known for being the founder of a business category that almost became a movement in India. Actually, did become a movement in India. So, Mr. Bhasin, over to you.
Thank you, Javed. Thank you, Harish. And thanks to everyone as part of this forum. I think it's Harish, thank you for picking the title. I don't know who picked the title, but I think it's very evocative and sparks the right reaction from all of us. And it's a pleasure to be here with Ajay Sani and Srinivas and, of course, Manish, who we know so well, and Deepak. It's wonderful to be here, and many of the other people here. I thought Javed would pick on me first, I was worried about that, but so here goes, because I thought it'll give me a time to think about my remarks, which I've done for many days now, and said, all right, how are we going to frame this? So, if I may, I think the purpose of this panel, I hope, is to be able to talk openly and freely, as we always do. And Harish, I'm sure we will all retain our jobs to the extent that we can. So my thought would be, as I guess, if I may say, the following comments, really related to the ease of doing business. So I think while there are many areas, I do believe we have made solid progress in many areas. really substantive progress in terms of bankruptcy codes, in terms of some areas of labor laws, in terms of company registrations, in terms of getting approvals, etc., at the same time. However, I would also add that unfortunately, at the same time, we have not seen a diminution of the number of reports and the number of other areas that we have to get into, which would allow business to work as easily as possible. I'll give you a few examples. And these are done at different levels by different states, generally, or by the center, or by regulatory authorities in various places. And I would say we still are not at a point where policy and regulation, particularly at the micro level, is done with enough consumer consciousness to make doing business very easy. And that's a phrase I do wish to use more and more, which is around consumer consciousness. I'll give you a few examples. These are very minor examples, but I hope we will consider them representative of the things that I'm talking about. So if you still look at the number of approvals that a startup requires, they are very substantive, particularly if they have an online and offline model. If you look at the number of approvals we'll still require even to exit an investment, that paperwork itself remains very voluminous. If we think also about what the Companies Act has done in recent times, in terms of the recording requirements for board meetings, the video requirements, and so on and so forth, there are many different things like that that still get in the way of the paperwork that's required, and perhaps some of the administrative stuff that should be easily eliminated. I am totally with Harish, excuse me, with his point that he's making about why do we have a rule from work from home. So what we have not seen is a concerted effort to actually get rid of laws. And what we have not seen is a concerted effort yet to establish new policies and regulations with an eye towards consumer consciousness and with a way to doing that which makes that easy. I believe, though, that in many areas we have made substantive progress. Certainly at the central level, we do not see the level of corruption that perhaps we would have. Certainly in the ministries and the bureaucracy, we see some astonishingly wonderful people working very diligently and very wonderfully. And I've always been proud. I don't, Mr. Soni doesn't know me specifically, but I've known of him through many of our forums. And I know how delighted we all have been in many years to work with him through NASSCOM and other places like that. And he's been a proponent of huge change. And yet around them, I guess I would say at the middle level of administration in India, that hasn't permeated down. So my comments on this, I hope you'll forgive me for being a little critical. I think we need to be quite critical because I would not say that ease of doing business in India is at a point where we can really congratulate ourselves very significantly. We still have miles to go in many, many areas. So if you think about all the issues that we may face around logistics, transportation, supply chains, etc., those issues remain. GST has been a very powerful force for good, a very powerful force that we all have embraced and loved. And in particular, a lot of the work that is being done on the tech stack around GST is actually probably the most cutting edge work in the world in those areas. That is being led out of, I know Manish knows many of the people who are deeply involved in that, but that really is leapfrogging to a completely different level. And I think India can set that example for the rest of the world as to how to build global platforms which the entire industry and everybody can use. And I think in visions like that, we have been fantastic. Even some of the recent moves that we have done around taxes, etc., have been great. But I will say, for instance, that it is still very difficult to be a startup and do all the things that you want to do. Taxation remains a thorn in many people's sides for reasons which are nothing to do with trying to evade taxes, but which are just to do with excess scrutiny, I would say, in many cases. And at the ground and mid level of getting things done, for instance, opening bank accounts, which should be very easy, but still requires a lot of paperwork, financial inclusion, many things like that, which was started with the right intention, but there have been layers placed upon these over time that have made those supposed concepts much more difficult now. I think we continue to have issues. Why is that, though? And I think that's the question we should try and answer. We have some of the smartest people in the world in our country, without doubt. We have some of the smartest people in our bureaucracy. The Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy produces some of the finest brains in this country who sit together and work together. And therefore, what is it that we need to do and accomplish at other levels where that level of seniority perhaps doesn't play out? I would not tell you that corruption has necessarily decreased at the ground level. I would not tell you that the judicial system, while it has improved in many ways, has substantially improved to the extent they should. I would not say that there are other areas like labor reforms that perhaps would have gone to the extent they could, or the reduction in the amount of paper that would happen. So in these areas, I think we have a long ways to go, and perhaps, and I would love everyone's views on this, my view is that a lot of it has to do with incentives. A lot of that has to do with accountability at the middle level, where perhaps the systems of government, the way to hold people accountable, the way to drive productivity needs to be far stronger for us to be able to achieve the results we do. I do want to stop here after one more statement. I do want to say doing business in India, Harish, has always been a pleasure. I know it comes with its pain. I know it comes with immense irritation from time to time. I know we all struggle with these things. But there aren't many countries where you can produce the kind of results we can, where you can invest, where you can see the growth that we're currently seeing. By the way, the growth today is beyond astonishing. It's, in my view, it's a nice large bubble waiting to happen, but that's a different point. We'll go to that some other day. But the growth, etc., is something that we can embrace here. And I think the excitement of pioneering new efforts in new areas across the board, and the excitement of even working, for instance, with the finest bureaucrats at the top level, who are extremely supportive of all our efforts, remains fantastic. And that excitement very often overcomes all the petty hurdles, perhaps, that we would face. So in final closing, yes, at the central level, I think a lot has been done, and I think we must congratulate many parts of the government for all the stuff that has been done. Our IT businesses continue to thrive very, very well. They have continued to grow. Our financial services businesses continue to grow. The tech stack continues to work very well. And yet, unless we wrestle with the thorny issue of mid-level friction that we face, and regulation and policy that happens without adequate consumer consciousness, I don't know that we can truly say that there is ease of doing business. Last example I would give you is, for instance, this is a very small example, but it all adds up. And forgive me, because to me, execution of how these things are done is important. So for instance, if the rules on recurring payments is changed, as far as credit cards are concerned, you have 20 million people, or whatever number it is, 10 million people going in diligently to change those rules. If the rules on number of bank accounts that you can have and where all the bank accounts need to be furnished and how those need to work change, again, you have millions of people being forced into action in a certain way. If the SCRL rules change and say you now all have to bank with State Bank of India in one branch, again, you have millions, 2 million NGOs rushing to one branch to change their bank accounts. That kind of behavior, I hope, one day we will realize is detrimental and causes too much friction. And there are many easier ways to solve for that. But doing business in India remains a pleasure, is a pleasure. There are many things we can improve, but I'm not sure I could think of a more exciting place to do the kind of business we're doing. My apologies for the length I've taken.
Thank you, Pramod. May I now ask the man who puts India to work, Manish Sabharwal, for his opening remarks. Thanks.
Thanks, Javed. I'm actually delighted that the ease of doing business rankings of the World Bank have been scrapped because they had nothing to do with our daily life. I was glad that our rankings were going up, and that's what should have been our normal incentives. But that ranking did not take the employer perspective out. And when I kept fighting over the years with people in government, they gave me a challenge a few years ago saying, well, why don't you put it together? And that's when last year we released the infographic or the report that there are 67,000 compliances, 6,700 filings, and it changed 8 times a day. And it's wonderful that the PM in his independence speech has announced that 15,000 have been identified for sort of removal. But I think that rather than making this a one-time exercise, we have to make it a dial tone. So we have to step back and ask, why did this? I mean, obviously, every compliance or filing was put in with a good intention. It was done to do something good. But Kant is a philosopher who replies, ought implies can. You have to really think about whether you can enforce these 67,000 laws. And when you can't, then you create transmission losses between how the law is written, interpreted, practiced, and enforced, which is just sort of politeness for, corruption. The Constituent Assembly debates spent a lot of time debating the difference between fundamental rights and directive principles. It's not like they didn't want education to be given to every Indian, but they said, if we're going to make something justiciable, let's not make it a fundamental right, let's put it in a directive principle. And I think that sort of wisdom to recognize what is critical path is really important. Now, as an addendum to last year's report, sometime later this year, we're going to release our report on criminalization. There are 25,000 ways to go to jail embedded in these. It's actually 26,410. I can give you the list, and we will be publishing the list. And we don't put 15,000 CEOs in jail. So all these criminal provisions which are really used for sort of petty corruption. So if I may submit that, ease of doing business 1.0 was really when 1991 happened. Ease of doing 2.0 was probably all the changes that have happened in the last 5-7 years. But I think we really need an ease of doing business 3.0, which is quite simple in terms of rationalize, decriminalize, and digitize. So somebody has to take an axe through these 67,000 compliances and filings and rationalize them. You need to decriminalize. I mean, the biggest definition of a criminal provision should be harm to others. There's too many criminal provisions in our employer compliances which don't have harm to others. I'm not saying victimless crimes are not crimes, but I do think there is a lot of debate globally. There is a lot of philosophy around when you should send somebody to jail. And I think too many of our 26,410 compliances don't pass that bill. And digitization is the last stage. You don't pave a cow path. You need to, and today digitization is being put ahead of rationalize and decriminalize. So I would submit, if we do this ease of doing 3.0, that is the only thing with global Fortune 500 CEOs left. This brand of India is a difficult place to do business. China is really, the economic gravity of the world is shifting to China. It looks like Xi Jinping has made a list of everything that made China great and what Deng Xiaoping did, and he's crossing each one of them out. That's a unique opportunity for India. And when I landed in the US in August 94 for my MBA, there was a front page article on the Wall Street Journal which said that India is more interesting than important. I hope that journalist is eating the newspaper on which she wrote that, right? Because what's happening in India isn't once in a decade or once in a millennium. It's really once in the lifetime of a country. And I would submit EODB 3.0, rationalize, decriminalize, and digitize, is really a plumbing project. It's really not a very controversial, and it's not about 4,700 IAS officers or 1 lakh central civil servants. It's about 22 million state and central civil servants, because 60% of this compliance mess is, and almost 65% is with states. So I think ease of doing business 3.0 is an idea whose time has come, and I hope we pursue it.
Thanks a lot, Manish. In India, government often has the last word in business. So I think it's only fitting that we now go to the other side and ask the government representatives for their views. May I start with Srinivas, who's a secretary in the Government of India and director of the Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy, for his opening remarks, please.
Yeah, thanks, Javed, and thanks, Manish, for really giving me the opening that I wanted to really talk about. As all of us know, the fundamental problem that we are dealing with is a trust deficit. The architecture is so complex.
Absolutely.
You have the civil service on one side, you have the private sector on the other side. We have the people who are also equally skeptical of all of us. Then we have, because people are skeptical, their representatives and the judiciary, they feel compelled sometimes to step in and really figure out how to make all of us work, align well, etc. And in a way, when I reflect on what the Prime Minister recently mentioned as having a trust-based approach, I mean, that we have seen in the remarks of Pramod also about the number of changes that have happened in the Companies Act, where a huge amount of former criminalized provisions have been converted to civil kind of sections. I can give you another example. That was in the Prevention of Corruption Act, which is perhaps the corest of the core of criminal legislations. Now, this was recently amended, and some of you might be aware, it has also made bribe giving a crime. But a company which is a juristic person is allowed a trust framework within this law. It enables a company to show that it has bona fide policies in place to ensure that neither of its servants or its agents are indulging in this kind of criminal activity. And if it is able to demonstrate, a company and, of course, the company's leadership can then prove to the courts that no, they're not complicit in this. So this is a large trust-based environment, I think, that we need to talk about. And Manish is right in saying it's just not the tip of the apex civil services we are talking about. And in this respect, the recent Mission Karmayogi that the Honorable Prime Minister launched addresses such a large number. The number actually represents the 54th largest country in the world. The number of civil servants who have to really undergo the mind shift that Pramod was talking about, Manish was talking about, is this. This is this large number at the cutting edge level, at the middle level, who have to understand that trust is something that we need to inculcate as a matter of habit, as a matter of practice. And this is something that the Mission Karmayogi, which is, in my view, the most important next-gen reform, which is addressing the mindset, it is addressing the attitude, it is addressing the approach, and it is trying to create a civil service that is futuristic in its thinking, more engaging in its dealing, and much more collaborative. This is at the core of this entire program. And this, because the architecture of our country's governance is very complex. We know that we are dealing with the central government, we're dealing with a myriad variety of state governments, we're dealing with the local governments, each one having its own, let us say, finger in the pie. But all of them together contribute to the complex, the task of regulation. Now, unless everybody gets aligned to a larger national goal, a larger national vision, this cannot be possible. And this cannot be done through building building procedures, building, let us say, new laws, new kind of regulations. It can be done only by bringing about a shift in the mind. And this is what the Mission Karmayogi is seeking to do. And for the first time in the world, at the highest level of any country, at the chief executive level, the Prime Minister himself leads a body called the PM HR Council, which is addressing this very issue, that how do the human resources of this country align with the larger national developmental objectives, the larger national challenges the larger national vision, and how do we do it in a very seamless platform type of an approach so that everybody synchronizes their action and broadly aligns. This is what Mission Karmayogi is trying to do. And in the LBS, as one of the prime movers of this policy, we are trying to inculcate this ethos into the very spirit of our civil servants who are passing out. And frankly, in my view, again, unless we are able to, all of us collectively, and I like the way you put it, Pramod, when you said consumer consciousness. Of course, if I use a government phrase, the citizen is feeling ease of comfort in his ease of living. I think it'll be very difficult for the businesses to have ease of, pleasure of doing business. I think it is two sides of the same coin. If we are able to address one, I think it would naturally lead to the other. And together, if we are able to address both these, then we are no longer talking about us and them, government and the other. We are all talking about being players on the same side. These are my initial observations. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, sir. May I now ask Mr. Ajay Sawhney, Secretary, IT and Electronics, for his opening remarks, please?
Thanks, Javed. Before I get on with the issues of pleasure of doing business, I must say that it's a pleasure to be on this panel and share this wonderful space with Pramod, whom I followed right since the time we got him into Hyderabad with 5,000 jobs. And with Manish, who's been doing some extraordinary work, and with Srinivas. And there's so much excitement that, in just a few minutes, I have picked up so much new vocabulary and so many new thoughts. In Pramod's words, the excitement of, or I'm paraphrasing that, the pleasure of doing business in India, coupled with a little bit of irritation and pain, of course, but the excitement of being an Indian in 2021, with this decade sort of promising to be a very different decade for us. In Manish's words, the issues of decriminalization, and I think that's the point that someone found India more interesting than important, and it's finally a huge amount of plumbing that needs to be done. I think these are absolutely new and wonderful thoughts. And Srinivas with the idea of a trust-based system, so that sets us up so beautifully. And there's a lot of ground to traverse. There's huge amount of work yet to be done. Yet, we have started by making progress steadily, and in some senses, significant progress on ease of doing business. We are looking at the very fact that we are looking at pleasure of doing business and taking it seriously. I think that itself is a good step. We have seen during pandemic how some agility is seen from the side of the government when it was there was so much uncertainty all around us. 98% of the people were having to work from home. We were able to, together, government and businesses, find pathways that enabled us to continue providing services with confidence, with almost very minimal setback to the quality and quantity of services that we were providing to the best companies across the globe. We were able to find a way to enable people to do work from home, which has got institutionalized. We were able to find a way to come up with new technology solutions, Arogya Setu and various other solutions that were capable of scaling up immensely with almost not a formal effort, with almost informal efforts. We are able to find a way to do a CoWIN, which has been able to register 100 crore vaccinations through one nationwide platform. These are not small accomplishments. They show us that we are capable of extraordinary agility today, which we have never never even thought of earlier. Today, we are not only imagining these, we are actually seeing them in action. We are seeing how Aadhaar has helped not just citizens, it has helped businesses, it has streamlined a large number of processes. In one fell swoop, it has taken away a huge clutter of intermediaries and all kinds of things. It has enabled taking the banking to everyone. It has enabled taking the benefit transfer directly to people, so that today we don't even consider it a problem. The way we used to consider that a problem. So it's a huge broom that has swept many things away. UPI, which has taken away the pain of it's your money, it's your money in your bank account, yet paying it out for something small, something big used to be so difficult. We have actually been able to, with UPI, we have been able to come up with immense entities that have left the huge world of credit and debit cards, the NEFT, the other mobile wallet systems, all of them far behind, not only in number but in value terms as well. Long back, right in the beginning of 2020, we left all of them far behind. We are looking at the other emerging platforms, GSTN, which of course has started with some associated pain, because it's a humongous step. It is a nationwide system which brings you one taxation system. Even while it goes through a process of becoming mature, what it opens up as an opportunity space is extraordinary. With the financial systems that are in place, and with the GSTN databases that are in place, it suddenly looks possible to solve another huge area that sets us back. The area of providing easy credit, competitive credit, instant credit to MSMEs and businesses, to traders and business, to industry, to any of the business organizations. People who did not have access to credit, where access to credit has been exceptionally painful for our entire known history. Suddenly there is a possibility that we would be able to sweep that away, and people would be chasing an MSME offering credit at competitive terms, almost instant credit, by leveraging the systems that we have already built. The healthcare ecosystem, the education ecosystem, the agriculture ecosystem, the ones that are especially the nationwide platforms, I would liken the power of these nationwide platforms to the engines that we have seen being most successful across the globe over the past 40 years or over the past 20 years. The combination of Windows and Wintel, I would say that the National Digital Health Mission by itself has the extraordinary ability to rival Wintel in its scope. The financial ecosystem that we are putting together between the taxation system and the financial services ecosystem and the payments ecosystem has the power to rival Airbus as an ecosystem. It's not one small project. These are nationwide ecosystems. What do we have as strength? We have national scale as strength. Where Srinivas is able to tell us such a beautiful snippet that the public servants alone, counted as population, would constitute the 54th largest country in the world. And he's out to reform all of us, and I'm sort of eagerly waiting to be reformed. and hoping that, yes, this will work beautifully. But it's scale. It is scale that is India's strength. And if we remain fragmented, as we have always been, in terms of dozens of projects being implemented in every domain, and we then weave them together into nationwide, domain-wide ecosystems that bring together not just governments at all levels, but also provide opportunities to the industry to join in, so that then we start tackling issues as Team India rather than as government and other than government. So these are extraordinarily exciting times, and I think there is one thing that gives me tremendous confidence, that many of our successes today, including commercial successes, including business successes, are increasingly being built around finding pain and resolving pain, solving problems. I think we have been able to find an extraordinary success bond, that finding pain, finding solution to problems, building success upon resolving pain is today becoming a beautiful way of doing business and a beautiful way of growing unicorns. And we've started growing unicorns as if, as if there is a sort of a forest of, a complete forest of unicorns. Go to any country in Europe and ask them how many unicorns have they produced. It's purely an Indian harvest, the ability to harvest unicorns. And that ability to harvest unicorns is going to be fueled significantly as we reach mature ecosystems, domain-wide, nationwide ecosystems in India. With this, I think there is tremendous confidence. I sometimes wish I was, 25 years old again, because it's such an exciting time. Yeah. And, the next decade is truly the decade where we must align everything to finding every single type of pain and deploying technology, deploying business acumen to solving problems that we are able to find. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. They're all very thought-provoking comments by everyone. So a couple of common themes, and I'd like the views of the panelists on this. First, I think everyone spoke, or Srinivas at least spoke in detail about the trust deficit. So in the opinion or in the view of the panelists, do you think that too many laws and too many rules come in the way of creating a high trust society? We'll start with Srinivas first, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you, Javed. Certainly, I feel there is an extraordinary plethora of similarly placed legislation, almost occupying what you might call common kind of a field. And I think there's a great scope for clarifying. I completely agree with Manish in saying that we need to completely move away from this whole approach to criminalizing every possible action. It's a very Daroga-based approach, a very traditional old British, so that for every small infraction, you have a small, and you try and fit everything into the Indian Penal Code, which is, I think, a very wrong way of approaching. There should be an appropriate, commensurate response to whatever is an infraction. So first of all, I think we need to clarify on the number of laws. And as you yourself have mentioned, a large number of archaic legislation has moved away. Second, only a couple of weeks back, the Honorable Prime Minister gave a directive to all their ministries that please consolidate. You have a plethora of instructions that are ranging over 10-year, 15-year, 20-year period. And he did indicate to all the ministries, just as the RBI consolidates and gives it as an annual circular, try and give similar clarity in the regulation that you deal with so that there is a consolidation. And third, where there is a scope for relaxation, I think there is a great case for relaxation. Certainly, we need to be very open about it. Laws, after all, are meant to serve us, meant to serve society, and they have to be contextually applied. I'm not saying in a discriminatory manner across the board, but in a very conscious manner, they should be applied very fairly. Certainly, I think there is a great case for this.
Mr. Swan?
I think that's definitely true that we have too many laws, too many rules, and now that Manish has sort of counted them all and given us a number of the 25,000, little less than 25,000 ways of going to jail. I think we do need to sort of list them all out and start ticking them off. Start finding ways to very significantly sweep away a large number of them and arrive at a complete sort of streamlining of the overall framework itself that clutters up our laws and that clutters up our justice system as well. So in this, I think we have made a great beginning because we have amazing encouragement from none other than our Honorable Prime Minister in taking this mission forward and in reducing the clutter, in reducing the criminalization, in simplifying the processes. And I would also like to add that I truly believe in the magic of nationwide platforms. And once again, a nationwide platform, we have the making of some extraordinary building blocks for this kind of a platform as well, or 2 or 3 platforms which have tremendous potential. One is the entire policing system itself. I think we have been able to bring in the first generation implementation across the entire nationwide policing system. We've been able to bring it into forensics, prosecution, prisons, and also on the other side, a second strand, which is of the courts and a national judicial data grid. Putting these two together, to my mind, is an extraordinary way of what we call an interoperable criminal justice system, but that could actually, the criminal portion can get de-emphasized, and it should be an interoperable justice system, which actually not only quantifies what is going wrong, it monitors what is going wrong, and it helps us to address it systematically as a nation, not just as government, but as a nation. So that is one thing that I think will help us tremendously. The second thing that would help us again is the concept of a single sign-on. A single sign-on for a citizen, a single sign-on for a business. We are hoping to start with something like this or accomplish something like this, starting with a complete domain like healthcare through the National Health ID. But eventually it should end up with a single sign-on for every citizen and for every business into one system whose plumbing is all done behind the scenes by us. That is our responsibility. And the citizen is able to find a way to reach services and to remove uncertainty, both in locating services and in getting these services and in getting access to opportunities. So these are two strands which I believe will help us, apart from the painstaking effort of identifying the obstacles and roadblocks and sweeping them away one by one.
Mr. Vaseem, would you like to weigh in?
Yes, if I may, and there's a lot to talk about. If you'll allow me, please, on this one. And I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I think the issue of what I have said for a long time in India is the default answer in India is you trust no one. And the default answer in countries where I have worked, which is the US and the UK, is that you broadly trust everyone. I mean, I can buy a home, right, with a digital signature sitting anywhere in the world in America. Here, I will find the number of documents I have to sign, the number of things that I have to sign is so immense that it is obviously a burden while everybody runs around, collects your PAN card, income tax return, etc. The number of times I have submitted my income tax return for support of an investment I've made across 20 companies, I must have submitted my income tax return must be flying around the system because I have submitted it at least 20 times, right? So on one side, we have these extraordinary achievements, which I must say, and Ajay, you said it right. You know, these are extraordinary. These platforms, the nationwide platform building, no other country has it. Look at the vaccination certificates that we are able to produce, right, on our phones. Look at the way it's working. Done. But you go to America, I got a Pfizer booster shot. You know, it's a little scrap of paper which has a little signature of the pharmacist on it, and that's how it's working. And therefore, if you're asked to show that as proof, it doesn't work. But I must say, and I'm just doing this, I hope you'll allow me, because this is where ease of doing business hurts. And I think we aren't doing sufficiently about that, which is at the mid and ground level. And I would add a sense of, one, how do we get administrative accountability at these levels? You see, we are powerless in the face of graft. There's nothing we can do. If somebody wants to hold me up, there's an excise law which says if I have more than X amount of drinks, I can be taken to jail. There's other laws which says in a company, UK must, if you don't keep a bucket for spitting, that way. So there's an extra amount of laws which allow graft and which allow work to be stopped. We must solve for this. We can't just, so we are very good, I find, in a crisis. We're very good because our bureaucrats are very smart at coming up with big scales, like the National Health Mission, you know, honestly, is path-breaking. It'll be fantastic. It'll be the best in the world. Our vaccination program, honestly, is the way it's works there. But at the ground level, if I'm held up from running a business, doing something, etc., I have no recourse. And by the way, you will allow me to say this, if you will allow me to say this, I do not believe that even senior bureaucrats really have the ability to enforce accountability when they see this happening below them. Because frankly, the unions, the way the labor laws work, the way all the processes work, it takes too long. Two, I would like to introduce this concept. We must accept this. The legal process has become the safety valve for the guilty. If somebody wants to take you on, they can hang you up in a legal process forever. If I'm trying to sell shares in a company and another shareholder or somebody else has a gripe, they can just hold me up. Now, this happens far too often. I was trying to sell shares recently. I have to file the income tax certificate saying there is signed by a chartered accountant, which says that there is no income tax pendency of any kind or dispute. Now, you know the number of disputes that happen in India on taxes, right? When you have clauses like that, that's when ease of doing business really hurts. One of the things we learned in our corporate careers, which is very different from running a country, as many of you are doing, was that 90% of our time is spent on execution. Execution at the ground level, not policy, not strategy, not broad concept, but execution at the ground level. I ran the skills business for many years really badly, and I lost a lot of money on it, deservedly so, because we ran it badly. It was entirely our fault. I can't fault anyone else for it, except for the fact that I could never get paid. So if the government cannot pay companies in time for what they are owed, how do companies survive? And these are the kinds of plumbing issues that I liked Manish's word. This is the kind of plumbing issue that we must solve for. We have watched this now for over 20, 25 years, as long as I've been working here, and these issues are not going away. And I will tell you also, Aadhaar is a miracle, right? Which other country, and again, Ajay's point about scale, no other country can work like this in a crisis. I mean, which other country can do 1 billion vaccinations, for God's sake, right? I mean, sawal bhi nahi hota, kisi ka, or they won't even think about mobilizing these resources. And when I tell my friends in the US about it, they're still back in the gas. But at the same time, what happens is that there are 10 other rules introduced. Try opening a bank account with just your Aadhaar card. Please try it. Try closing your bank account with just a few documentation. Please try it. So there is a default answer of distrust, of saying, send me all the documents. If somebody has passed away in your family, try and go and see what level of documentation and time is required. So along with law, the legal process is logjam. It is we cannot. I will do anything in my power to stay away from the legal process. People have cheated me. I will not sue them. I will not sue them. Someone has cheated me on a land deal I did a long time ago by forging a will and sending it to me. 15 years later, it's in court. This is what ease of doing business does. Contract law, enforcing it. This is where, if I may ask, and I would love to talk to our Prime Minister about this and say, look, people like us, I've spent my life making processes efficient, right? End-to-end processes all over the world, deeply efficient. We would spend the rest of our careers just helping the government processes to improve. And I think we need that as desperately as we need the big holistic platforms, which, by the way, the world is beginning to recognize that India is doing something extraordinary, right? It's and when I talk to people about it, it's on healthcare, on financial payments, etc. It's doing something. And I'll finish in very quickly. And therefore, I think in these areas, taxes, for instance, there is, by the way, I have had phenomenal relationship. I've never been hassled in any way about taxes. I've been fortunate to make some decent money. My process has worked very well. I hope that continues after this discussion, but I'm sure it will. And they work beautifully. But at the same time, the amount of documentation we need to demonstrate that's where our money came from becomes very, very difficult.
I'll just cut you short now because
yes,
I'm sorry about this.
So
see, all this, whatever we've spoken, finally comes down to the mindset issue.
No,
unless
that's not true. Please,
sure.
please. I want to make a very clear point. It is not about mindset. It's about holding people accountable, right?
Accountability is also
no,
is also a mindset thing. Okay, we
can
disagree on this, but
we run businesses and they're not driven by.
Very quickly,
if you want to hold
Mr. Sawhney and Srinivas on this entire accountability issue. How do we infuse? How do we change mindsets in the system so that a lot of these issues get resolved?
Do I go?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Frankly, I think we need much deeper conversations. And I think we need to really engage and understand the opacity that is there on both sides. We need to understand what is the pain point on the other side. We need to understand what is the pain point on this side. I largely tend to agree with what Pramod said in terms of the difficulty that everybody experiences in trying to get the legal system to deliver. So one of the fundamental problems that we have is not the quantity or the quantum of punishment, but the certitude of the punishment. How quickly can it happen? I mean, long years back, I used to remember, it's a nice, interesting phrase. They used to say in certain Arab, the Middle Eastern countries, the justice system was efficient because it was Jummah to Jummah. So you had something happening in between the two Jummas, you were sorted. If you have, if you have a certitude of action, accountability can be enforced.
Absolutely.
Because it needs to be proximate in time. I mean, justice delivered 5 years later, 10 years later, 15 years later. For God's sake, it's no justice. And even in our own daily lives, official lives, trying to enforce this in even amongst ourselves with our own, let us say, colleagues, subordinates, whatever, it is a very painful process, just as it is on the other side. So largely speaking, accountability, yes, for that we need to improve our process. We need, and the process also can be improved only when we declutter and declog. I mean, if you have so much of overload happening, how can the system be efficient too? So therefore, we need to address it from all sides, focus on the important ones first, remove a lot of unnecessary, let us say, load out of the system, focus on the core ones, make sure that those who deserve to be visited by punishment are punished in time in a very demonstrably clear manner, so that the cause and effect is very clear. And once that happens, I'm sure a lot of the conversation that we are happening would then be passé, and then we will move to the next level.
Mr. Sawhney?
Yeah, I first of all agree with the the kind of pain that Pramod has expressed so eloquently, and many of the thoughts that Srinivas has brought in. To get out of the place we find ourselves in, where there are significant number of issues and problems to be resolved. I think there are two prongs to this strategy. One is to painstakingly identify what all is going wrong, the way Manish has embarked upon listing out something and then sifting through that and sorting them out one by one, decriminalizing, digitizing, and moving many things out. And system, one after the other, we keep tackling that. The second way, which is also equally important, and in fact, it's more ecosystem wide or a slightly different way of approaching this. That is to, taking cue from a city that has a large number of traffic jams, and there is no way to move from where I am in CGO complex to the airport. Even if I were to put all kinds of systems in place, it will still take me a certain amount of time to reach the airport. I can't wish it away. The second way is the drones way. Lift yourself up from there. Architect yourself out of the problem area. Get to a level of elevation where you don't have to grapple with each one of these one by one. Let's architect ourselves out of this system. Let's use the beautiful power of technology to give us these platforms. The same solution in the criminal justice system sort of simplifies and lets us measure in how many cases is someone suffering, like Pramod is explaining to us. How many cases are going beyond what is acceptable? And are we making progress day on day, week on week, month on month in resolving that pain? Can we architect ourselves out of it? Can we redesign the system? Can we all, instead of being government on one side and the businesses and citizens on the other, can we bring ourselves together by architecting the system differently? That, I think, has tremendous potential once again, and I would seriously vote for that as one of the major methods to get us out of where we are, so that we seriously move towards, not discussing the ease of doing business, but the pleasure of doing business and the pleasure of living in India as well.
So sorry, IT has a large role to play in this. So so if you can just identify for us 3 measures that the IT ministry and the government is taking that can accelerate this process of converting ease into pleasure.
Javed, just before Mr. Sani responds, I believe the minister is already come into the green room, so we can answer this question and then wind up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think first weaving together these domain-wide systems which make it easy to discover problems and to find answers to our pain points, whether it is individual or it is systemic. That I think is, if we have a problem, at least we should have a place where we can go and get it resolved.
Absolutely.
And get it resolved within a defined period, with a defined, clear process which is always available. So that is one way. And then a kind of a single sign-on which sort of removes the clutter behind the scenes. It's the job of the government to sort of weave it all together, and either a citizen or a business should have a single point or a single entry to finding solutions to their issues. So I think these two are extremely important for us as we move forward.
Thanks a lot. I'll now hand over to Deepak for the last word. Deepak, over to you.
Thanks, Javed, for beautifully conducting this whole session, covering different aspects and teasing out different dimensions of this whole complex issue around pleasure of doing business, which is the aspirational agenda that PAFI has put out this year in this forum. So I just want to thank all the panelists. I don't want to do it individually because I know that we are already, the Honorable Minister is ready for the next session. I just want to say one thing only. As was mentioned by Mr. Srinivas, that any policy, law, or regulation, when it is implemented, when it is brought in, there's a particular context around it. Now, what typically tends to happen is the context does change, whereas text does not change. So I think as long as we can use technology or any other thing to monitor that and also take these type of corrective actions, whether on an individual basis or, as Mr. Sani just mentioned, on a collective basis by rising up above all these things and reimagining, rebooting and reforming. And that's been also the theme for PAFI's forum this year. And with that, let me end this session. The next session is starting immediately. The Honorable Minister is already with us. And thank you.
Thank you very much.